Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you exactly how much my stock market portfolios returned in 2020, including my worst and best portfolios. 2020, the lost year, is finally over, but on the stock market it really wasn't a lost year. A lot of money disappeared and came back, and many new investors seized the opportunity in the downturn to start investing in stocks, and it was really a good opportunity to grab. The year began fairly calmly and the stock market continued to rise after the 2019 large upswing. But sometime in February we heard about this new virus and the world was turned upside down, and so was the stock market. And before I show you my numbers, I just want to say this will not be the most exciting or amazing numbers you've ever seen. My strategy is not to take as much risk as possible, but most of my capital is actually invested in index funds. I also have a few individual stocks and some different portfolios for different strategies. So I'm also going to show you the results of my worst and best portfolio as a comparison. And maybe these numbers will be a little bit more fun or exciting. If I had a smaller amount invested, I would probably also take a slightly higher risk with it. But I will also make some changes this year because now it's actually a good time to review your holdings and set your strategy for the coming year. So, back to the stock market year 2020. And while it started well, it quickly went down in February and March. And it went really fast down. The stock market plunged 33% in just 18 days, and I don't think we've ever seen such a rapid decline. And March 16 was the worst day for the US stock market in the whole year, where the stock market plummeted over 12% in one day. Then it really isn't easy to sit on your hands and do nothing. And I actually chose to not log into my account for a couple of weeks in the worst of the downturn. It doesn't really help to see how much money you lose or disappear every day. And then I think it's much easier to end up in thoughts like, what if this time is different? What if it doesn't go up again and everything is lost? Because it's a completely different thing to sit here and now today and think, of course I can handle a decline of 30, 40, 50 or more percent. I can handle that easily. But once you sit there in the middle of the downturn and you don't know where and when it will end, you're not so sure anymore. So I think it's very important that you all have a clear strategy and that you feel that you can follow both in up and downturns. However, it's not part of the ordinary stock market year to see the stock market dive so much either. But every year we usually see a smaller correction of around minus 10%. And that is regardless of how the full year ends. So it's likely that we will see at least a small correction in 2021 as well. So now you're prepared for that, guys. And if there's one thing that is clear from 2020, it's that no one can predict the future of the stock market. And if you try to time the market, you lose more often than you win. Yeah, there was probably someone who did exactly the right thing when they said in the beginning of February that the stock market will soon crash. But there's been someone every year since the recovery of the financial crisis who has warned that the crash would come soon. And someday they were bound to be right. For one thing is sure, it's not a question of if the crash comes, but when. And then they're bound to be right eventually. But there were also very many who sold in the rapid decline and who didn't buy in again when it turned up so quickly. Because already at the end of March, the stock market turned around again. And then there was a lot of people who talked about the bull trap or dead cat bounce, where you think that the recovery has started and then it turns around and goes down even further again. And I understand that. I feel like it turned around very fast and the global situation hadn't really changed a lot. So many were waiting for an even bigger downturn and missed part or all of the recovery. Why then did the stock market turn around again? Even though we didn't see any change in the global situation? Well, first and foremost, the stock market is forward-looking, and you have probably heard this before. So the price of the share is based on what you think about the future income potential of a company, and not what is happening here and right now. And then we have historic low interest rates in many countries, which means that there is not really any good alternative to stocks for those who want to make any returns on their money. So savings accounts give nothing or almost nothing, and fixed incomes give very little right now as well. Then governments around the world have put in place various support packages to help companies throughout this crisis. And not all industries have been affected equally either. Some have even profited from this. For example, the big tech giants benefited from people staying at home more and using more online-based services. And because of their larger size, they make up a larger part of many market capitalization weighted indices. Basically, the larger the company, the larger weight on the index, or the higher percentage of the total index the individual company makes up. And therefore, these giants raise the value of the stock market or index more than smaller companies can do when they are doing well. But there are also many companies and industries that haven't recovered at all. And here we find oil-producing companies, for example, cruise lines and airline companies, where several still are down more than 50% for 2020. But the US stock market of the S&P 500 index as a whole still rose almost 50% from the bottom and ended at 15.29% for the whole year. And the Nasdaq, that includes more tech companies, rose over 41%. A fairly decent stock market year anyway in the end, right? Who would have thought that in mid-March? And if you started investing in stocks anywhere around the bottom, you almost certainly have a much better year than I had. But it's also important to understand that the rise we've seen since the bottom in March is not normal for the stock market. So this is nothing that we can expect to see during 2021 as well. Although the stock market generally goes up more than it goes down. So how did I do in 2020? Well, as a whole, my portfolio increased with 15.72%. So my returns are in line with those of the S&P 500. Although I have a part of my capital in global index funds that only went up a few percent last year. And then we get into my worst performing portfolio, which is actually a retirement portfolio that contains a single global fund. And it went about 2.5% up in the whole year of 2020. And seems to have also gone down a bit since then, because right now when I'm filming this, it is at 1.66% for the whole year. So the world as a whole hasn't recovered from the decline yet, even if, for example, the United States had done so more. Europe, for example, has not and is currently down around 6% for the year. When I checked my holdings before this video, I started to think that it actually wasn't a really good idea to put my retirement money in a global fund, because I don't plan to retire in many decades yet. So then it's actually an excellent opportunity to take a little bit more smarter risk with my money. But they simply ended up there because I didn't really know what to do at the time when I started this portfolio. But I think I will change it this year. And maybe I should follow the same strategy as my best portfolio instead, because this portfolio returned 77% for the whole year of 2020. And it wasn't because I managed to time the market in any way or that I bought everything at the bottom, because despite the decline, this portfolio managed to make 77%. It's a fairly concentrated portfolio of 10 smaller companies, and it follows a quantitative strategy based on various key figures. And for those interested, I've had this portfolio since September 2019, and it has done 120% since then. Not entirely that bad, I think. And it has also beaten its benchmark index by far. But it remains to see how well this strategy will perform in the long run. The important thing here is to understand that this portfolio naturally takes a much higher risk with 10 small companies than a global fund with several thousand companies from all over the world. And with a higher risk, we also expect the possibility to get higher returns. All in all, a good stock market year, I think, despite stock market crashes, US elections, pandemics, and Brexit, just to mention a few. Now it remains to see what 2021 has to offer. I'm hoping for something a little bit less volatile. How do you think the stock market will do in 2021? Write a comment below. Will we see another decline, or will it continue upwards from here? And feel free to click thumbs up if you like this video. Continue watching these videos appearing on the screen right now, or link down in the description to hear more about stocks, personal finance, and how the stock market really works. And I wish you a good stock market year in 2021, and see you all in the next video.